Hey, everyone. Again on antibiotics. Why? Because we've got a lot of people out there that are nibbling on kibble, don't we? You know who you are. Guilty as charged. People in the paleo community, in the low carb community, in the veganerized community. Yes, you vegans. Yes, my dear vegans, my dear veganerized army of misfits. And even vegetarians, obviously. So anybody that nibbles on a constant basis or periodically is exposing themselves to antibiotics. It's not just the sort of carnies out there that are being exposed. Look, as I pointed out in the other video, most of the stuff goes through a process and gets eliminated in the system because when it comes to human and veterinary science, we pretty much know exactly what's going, how long it takes to clear out of the system for humans, for livestock and stuff like that. And there are tests all over throughout the whole process of livestock processing, so to speak. We'll use that rather than the other S word. Off with your head. Yes, the slaughter thing. So, and even if, by law, they're actually required, if they find, stuff that's got residue, out with you. The reality is most industry doesn't do that. What they do is they'll put it in fridges for quite a long period, several weeks or longer. They will test it to make sure that there is no more residue, and then they'll sell it as aged meat. Cheaper, but still it won't have any residue. And then the rest of it, as I pointed out in a comment to someone, I said, well, I didn't say but I said the following. You worry about, people worry about, oh, what about, the antibiotics and all these other things are going to cause, like grains and stuff like that are being eaten by these animals. They're going to cause some inflammation and stuff like that. True. They will cause some inflammation. They will cause some cellular damage. True. But in the end, are we consuming foreign proteins? No. Our body denatures all foreign proteins and fats, and sugar is broken down in the stomach. In an acidic stomach, all these things break down to simple sugars, to simple fats, to fatty acids, to simple amino acids. We absorb the building blocks, our enzymes, the machinery that we've got in our body. That's what rebuilds our proteins based on our DNA. Got it? That's what transcription, the sort of the RNA part and the transcription, messenger sort of the RNA, all these sort of things, that's all part of the mechanisms of transcripting and, picking, oh, we need this enzyme, we need that. Okay, let's build it. Oh, here's a bunch of aminos that have just come in. Exactly. So all cellular structures are built by pieces of cholesterol, pieces of fat, and simple pieces of fat that then are constructed in more complex structures and bilayers and stuff like that, and the proteins that also are involved in those structures. So, the amino acids that are also involved in those structures. You get into the habit of using certain words so often that you've got to remind yourself. So we are using those elemental parts, the elementary parts of macronutrients. So we're not consuming damaged cells. First of all, you get an autoimmune effect. We're consuming amino acids. Our bodies ourselves, we do the same thing. Autophagy, fast for a while. You break down those protein structures into simple amino acids. They add to the amino pool. And that's why, remember, I used to say in some of my live streams years ago about the pulsatile effect of autophagy. It's not continuous, but it's pulsatile. As aminos come in, you get into utilizing them for repair. So you have slight movements of anabolic processes. These are low grade. Remember, like insulin to glucagon, depending on what you're eating or you're fasting, they tend to be in those lower levels. Exercise a bit and glucagon will go up much more. You're not exercising, so you don't need more, or the dawn effect in the morning will go slightly up to release a lot of energy. Get you going. You've got to go out for a hunt. Find that bison. Yummy. So this is how the physiology works. It's well thought out, well designed. So that's what's happening. Now, antibiotics are not just in animals, my dear Vagoons. No, they are also in crops. So you point the finger at us and go, you cardies are consuming all that antibiotics. Well, so are you. And the difference is, we, at least in our industry, they are required by law to check and make sure. In your industry, kibble industry, not the case. My dear vagoonerized friends, not the case at all. Yes, I hope that sort of leaf that you've got in your mouth chewing away, you've just stopped for a moment and you're having that sort of nauseous effect. It gets even worse. Okay, now let me share my screen. Maybe let the fun begin. Voila. New study reveals use of antibiotics on crops is more widespread than previously thought. Who would have believed? Your kibble producing friends are not doing the right thing by you, and you were only concerned about glyphosate. Well, aren't you in for a big surprise? So let's take a look. The world is very aware. Let me just zoom in a bit. Oops. Let me zoom in a bit so it's clear. The world is very aware of overuse of antibiotics and the development of resistance in bacterial populations. This has led to calls for greater control and monitoring of their use in both human and veterinary medicine. That is true. But we don't have to worry because there are good laws and procedures to make sure that it doesn't get into the food supply. And even if they're, in many cases, even if there's small residue and all that, cooking will get rid of most of them. There are some like penicillin that are more persistent, and they do, for those more persistent ones, definitely check quite a bit, even when they put them in the fridges. So now, what is less well known by kibble eaters is that antibiotics are routinely used in crop production, according to new research, are being recommended far more frequently and on much greater variety of crops than previously thought. Not yummy. The use of antibiotics to control plant diseases is not new. They have been used for decades on crops like apples and pears. I hope you're not choking on one of those at the moment. You fruitarians, you know who you are. Or what about the you Saladino fanatics. Yes, yes. Chewing on some extra fruit tomorrow, are we? I wonder. Remember, there's more water in fruit. That means more of those antibiotics and more of those substances can actually go into there and survive. Very hard compared to animal flesh to get rid of them, isn't it? Yes. Enjoy your fruit tomorrow. After being shown to be an effective means of controlling some bacterial diseases, however, the extent of their use worldwide has been little studied and is largely unknown because everybody's focused on human use and animal use and completely neglected this whole area. And remember, most of the crops, where are they coming from? They're coming from a lot of developing countries, South America, Asia, Ukraine, Russia, many other parts of the world. There's lesser regulations in those parts, like kibble eaters. There's less regulation. Yes. Don't choke. Take care. A recently joint investigation by the FAO and OIE and the WHO into antibiotic use found that the number of countries that are currently monitoring the use of antibiotics in crop cultivation is very low compared to those monitoring antibiotic use in the veterinary and medical areas. Out of 158 countries questioned, only 3 indicated they had any kind of regular assessment of the type of and amounts of antibiotic use on crops. This contrasts strongly with countries that have monitoring systems in place for human use, 26%, mostly developed countries, Western, and animal health, 23, again, mostly Western countries. Don't expect anything that comes beyond a Western country to have the same level of monitoring. This lack of data on the use of antibiotics in crop-based agriculture has led many people to presume the amounts being used were negligible. Yes, living in delusion like kibble eaters, aren't you? You're all living in delusion. The new research was on an analysis of more than 436,000 records from plant clinics in 32 countries between 2012 and 2018. It revealed that antibiotics, some of which are considered critically important for human medicine, that means you're going to have resistance for stuff that affects humans. Got it? Not a good thing, kibble eaters. You basically will give yourself, by munching on that kibble, you'll give yourself potentially a resistant strain. Not looking good for you guys. Yes, I'll stick to my steak. It revealed that antibiotics, some of which are considered critically important to human medicine, are being recommended for use on over 100 crops. Hard to avoid, my kibble eaters. And in some cases, in copious quantities and as a prophylactic treatment. So even if there's nothing, a pathogen detected on your kibble, they'll still put it on there for prophylactic purposes, which means that they are putting it on multiple times through the crop cycle. Yes, my kibble eaters. Very concerning. So I won't go through the whole lot. I'll leave it, and people can. Dr. Phillips Taylor was the lead author, and pretty much they looked at areas in Southeast Asia and many other parts of the world. And this is the study itself. So we only documented the use of antibiotics on crops is that on top fruit in the US. Yes, Mr. Salad Boy, I hope you're enjoying your fruit. So it's well documented in the US in regards to fruit. Probably the bigger industries have got an exemption because they've got more political clout, I suspect. Okay? But my dear Saladino boys, yes, enjoy your fruit tomorrow. So I'll leave it at that. People can read about it, find out, you'll get all the data, all the amounts in different parts and all that. For me to go through all that would take a long time. Since we don't eat kibble, us carnivores, like the rest of, and you know who you are, yes. This is for my kibble friends in the veganerised community in particular. Yes, yes. Enjoy your salad and fruit tomorrow. Anyway, now for my subscribers, my regular subscribers, I hope this was informative and you realised it's endemic through the food supply. It's not only meat. Everybody gets so wound up. At least in meat, it's better monitored because there are procedures in place, especially in developed countries where there's been a long practice of better. Well, there's been pressure, let's say, by vegans and vegetarians and many others on our industry. And it's, I can only say to the veganerised community, thank you for making meat free of antibiotics. Do enjoy your fruit tomorrow, both you and the salad boy. But anybody that actually tells you that you should be concerned about your meat, give them a link to this video and tell them, maybe you should consider your fruit and kibble. That's what you should tell them. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. See yous.